So the Maxxis Razr AT-S tyre, what's it like after about 12,000 kilometres of use? In this video I'm going to let you know my thoughts, what they're like off-road, what they're like on-road, and give you enough information that's going to help you understand how this tyre may be able to suit you and your driving needs. So I'm going to give you a bit of information about the tyres, some of the features and the benefits of them, and then we'll dive into how I've found them on-road and off-road. And at the end of the video, I actually want to put a vernier caliper on here and measure the tread depth so we can see how much wear we've had on the tyres over that period of time. And then we're going to show you what the tread pattern looks like and any damage to the tyres and give you an understanding of that. So, a little bit about the tyres. Well, they're a Maxxis Razr AT-S, all-terrain type of tyre. So they're very much orientated towards the on-road. They're designed to have about 70% on-road and 30% off-road orientation. Their designation is AT781. That's the part number, if you will, for the actual tyre. So these tyres have been designed for the occasional four-wheel driver, the type of person who mainly runs around town, does highway work, on-road sort of stuff, but they do occasionally do some dirt roads. Maybe they want to go to the beach, maybe they want to go for a trip up into the mountains, that sort of thing. Now, with regards to tyre sizes, they do have a fair variety of different sizes, that'll fit different vehicles and that. For the Land Cruiser 105 series here, the largest tyre I could fit out of the range was these, which is a 255 70R17, which equates to about a 31 inch in the old money. I normally run a 33-inch tyre on this vehicle. Be aware that in the AT-S range, there's not a huge spread of sizes. If you're looking for larger sizes like 33s or 35-inch tyres, you're probably not going to find that tyre in the AT-S range. But that's not really the user that this tyre is aimed for. So I think you'll find, if you're looking at purchasing these, you'll find the tyre size that you're looking for. Now, the load rating of the tyres. The load ratings do vary from size to size, so you'd need to look at what size tyre you're looking for and the load rating, but I think you'll find that for most applications, there's plenty of load rating capacity in the tyre for the way most people are going to use it. Another point which I believe is really important is the 3 peaks snow rating. Now, at the moment, at time of filming, it's about 35 degrees Celsius right here, and I'm sweating. So snow's the last thing on my mind. And to be honest, I don't get to do a whole lot of snow driving, but I know a lot of my audience live in countries and places where you get a lot of snow. So I think it's important for you to be aware that you get a 3 peak snow rating. Now, what is that going to mean? Well, it's going to mean that in cold environments, the rubber is going to maintain its suppleness, its flexibility, and the tread is going to give you a reasonable capacity in snow and ice type of driving. I think we've got to understand that they're not going to be a knobby tyre in ice that's going to have, what is it? Well, you put nails in there or something, don't you? So they're spiked into the ice. See how much I know about snow? Anyway, you get the idea. They've got a good rating for snow, so enjoy it. Maybe you could invite me over and I'll come wheeling with you. That'd be fun. Okay, let's get into some of the off-road experiences and how I've used them off-road. So let's start with sand. Well, being the type of tyre it is, it works really well. And I've used it up on Razr Island, which is the largest sand island in the world, and they performed really well. Obviously a larger size tyre and all that would give you more flotation, would be better again, but when it comes down to tread pattern, which is what really matters in sand, this is going to do a pretty good job in that environment. The only consideration I would say to you is, if the type of sand driving where you drive on sand has a lot of puncture ability, like there's lots of sticks and stuff like that in the sand, their puncture resistance is more orientated to on-road rather than that off-road environment. So you may find you get a a sidewall stake or something like that because of the type tyre it is. So it may not be the right tyre for that type of environment. And I'm going to share some info about punctures a little bit later in the video. Dirt roads. We've done a lot of dirt roads. I'm going to say probably up around the close to 1,000 kilometres has been on dirt roads. And I mean more high speed, graded, formed type of dirt roads. And they do a great job. You don't want to push them hard because you come into corners and you know there's those marbles, I call them marbles, lots of little small pebbles all on the outside of the turns. Well, these tyres tend to skate on top of those marbles rather than bite down into the substrate of the road. So that is a consideration. What I would say, if you're driving with these tyres on a dirt road, slow down a bit. Don't start pushing them because they'll be fine. They'll get you where you need to go. You just got to be aware of the type of tyre you're driving on in that environment. Mud. They're absolutely not going to work in mud. They're going to clog up straight away, and so you'll basically have a slick tyre on mud. They're not a mud tyre. What more can I say there? I think that's obvious. I don't think they were designed for mud. They're good on a wet road, but a wet road's very different to a muddy road. So if you're doing a lot of mud work, these are not the tyres for that environment. Okay, let's talk about harder off-road. Now, when I was putting these tyres on here, Maxxis said to me, Matt, don't treat these like a hard off-road tyre. They're not designed to be a hard off-road tyre. I'm like, yeah, mate. And then promptly went out and did hard off-roading with them. So, I mean, in my mind, I want to know what they're good for. I want to know how hard off-road can they go. And they actually go a lot harder than I expected. What do I mean by that? Well, we've literally just got back from a trip down into the Victorian high country here in Australia. The total trip was around about 4,000 kilometres. We did about 650 of those kilometres in what I would term medium to hard off-roading. Some of you who know the country down there, we did tracks like Butcher country down onto the McAllister River. We did across Lovick's Hut. We did all around Craig's Hut down to King Hut. We made our way through numerous trails in the high country area, right through up into Dargo and so on. They are not my preferred tyre for that environment. But remember what I said at the beginning. If you're the type of person that occasionally goes and does this sort of trip, they'll do the job. They actually did the job surprisingly well. There was one moment where we did have an issue with them. And my son, who drove the vehicle at the time, he's not the most experienced four-wheel driver, and it came down to a driver skill issue where he got offline and the tyres let go on him. And so I gave him a bit of coaching and said, just do this and that and you'll get through the obstacle, which was a very steep climb on that track I mentioned, Butcher country track. And he put the front locker in and the rear locker in and got onto the line, drove it the way I told him, and he got straight up through the obstacle. They can get the job done. And he drove the vehicle all the way through Blue Rag, which goes to a fantastic lookout. And that track's got a lot of wombat holes, loose, scrabbly bits of track in it. We even had, a couple of days prior to us going through there, a vehicle rolled over on that track. So it gives you an idea. At the moment, it's a fairly decent sort of track, and he walked straight through that track with the AT-S tyre, and that was really impressive as far as I was concerned. So overall, they did a great job in that type of environment. Off-road, we didn't have any punctures. But this is the puncture bit. We were 620 Ks into our off-road drive. We had 30 Ks left before we hit the bitumen and headed home. And on the high-speed road going from Dargo to Hotham Heights, the back left tyre hit I call them ghoulies. It's a rock that's just sitting on the road. It's hit that, and he's actually punctured the tread block area of the tyre and fractured it. He was aired down to about 30 PSI. I think realistically it's probably one of those things that happens, but it's kind of hard to say, oh, well, that every ATS is going to fail in that environment. The other 3 tyres didn't fail. We did lots of other similar roads. We'd driven that road earlier in our holiday and no issues. So I think it was just one of those things, but hey, it happened. Righto, let's have a look at the tread and then I'll measure how much wear we've had since I've had them on the vehicle. So as you can see, there's a few chips and bits and pieces come out of the tread blocks. Now, to me, the guy who drove the tracks and drove the vehicle and all of that, that's not a problem because all of that has happened off-road when we've been wheel spinning, going up rock shelves, and some of the country we travel is that shaly, sharp sort of rock that does cut up the tyres a bit. So for me, that's not an issue. You may go not happy with that and choose a different tyre. Of course, that's why I do these videos. I want to give you information, making sure you're knowing exactly what goes on so you make the right decision for your needs and your vehicle. Let's do a measurement. Okay, so in the center of the tyre, just measuring this carefully, I've got to make sure I don't press into the tyre and get an accurate measurement. I've got 9 millimeters. Factory, brand new, these are 10.4 millimeters of tread depth. So what's that? We're losing, round numbers, we're losing 0.1 of a millimeter of tread per 1,000 kilometers. That's a rough way of interpreting that. Now here's something interesting. As I measure the outside of these tyres, so there we've got a 7.8, and if I measure here, I've got to be careful I measure it accurately. We've got an 8.5, I'll say. So 7.8 out here and 8.5 in there. Now, what that says to me is that the inside of the tyre is not wearing as much as the outside of the tyre. I think that's because we did so many kilometres aired down. 650 Ks with low tyre pressures down. I think on the fronts we were 25 PSI, but some of that was high speed dirt roads. So I suspect that's where we've worn the outer edges of the tyre, is because of that underinflation. So in summary, what do I think of the AT-S tyre? Well, it's not a tyre that I'm going to run on my 4-wheel drives. And the reason's very simple and kind of obvious, I think. I do way too much 4-wheel driving to run this style of tyre. But I'm the exception. The vast majority of people spend an awful lot of time on road, on formed bitumen roads, and a very little amount of time off-road. And so I think this is actually going to suit an awful lot of people who own 4-wheel drives and do the occasional bit of off-roading. It's going to be an excellent tyre for them. It's quiet on road. It's got good on-road handling characteristics, both in cornering, braking, accelerating, all of that sort of thing. I've never had them skidding or carrying on for me. It's got good wet weather control as well, which is important. And so I think this tyre is going to suit an awful lot of people out there in the market. I'm Mad Matt. Stay safe on the trails.